Imagine a time before money existed. Picture yourself waking up in a world where coins, bills, and credit cards are completely unknown. There are no banks, no ATMs, and no digital wallets. Instead, your entire community relies on something much more direct and personal: the exchange of goods and services, face to face, neighbor to neighbor. This was the reality for countless generations of humans, stretching back thousands of years to the dawn of civilization. Let's say you're a farmer and this year your chickens have been especially productive. You have more eggs and chickens than your family can possibly eat. But as you look across your small plot of land, you realize you're running low on apples, a staple for your family's meals and winter preserves. You need apples, but you don't have any. What do? In this world, you can't just go to a store and buy apples. Instead, you have to find someone who not only has apples, but also wants what you have to offer: your surplus chickens or eggs. This is the essence of bartering, a direct exchange of goods or services with no money involved. It's a system built on negotiation, trust, and sometimes a bit of luck. This system of bartering was the foundation of trade for thousands of years, long before the first coins were ever minted. People exchanged what they had for what they needed, whether it was food, tools, clothing, or even services like repairing a roof or helping with a harvest. Every transaction was unique, shaped by the needs and wants of the people involved. Bartering might sound simple, but in practice, it could be surprisingly complicated. Imagine the challenge of finding someone who not only has what you want, but also wants exactly what you have. Sometimes you might spend hours or even days searching for the right person to trade with. The process could be frustrating, especially if your goods were perishable or if you needed something urgently. What if the apple farmer doesn't want chickens? Maybe their own coop is already full, or perhaps they simply don't like the taste of chicken. Suddenly, your surplus is worthless to them, and your search continues. Or maybe the apple farmer is in need of something else entirely, like firewood to keep their home warm through the cold nights. Now, you're faced with a new problem. You don't have firewood, but you still need apples. To get those apples, you might have to find someone else who wants chickens and is willing to trade you firewood. Then, you take that firewood and offer it to the apple farmer in exchange for apples. This multi-step process is called a double coincidence of wants. You need to find two people whose needs and offerings align perfectly, and sometimes even more. It's like solving a puzzle, and it can take a lot of time and effort. As you can see, bartering can be very inefficient. The more people and goods involved, the more complicated it becomes. Sometimes, trades break down entirely, and people go home empty-handed, their needs unmet. The system works, but it's slow, unpredictable, and often leaves people wishing for a better way. It takes a lot of time and effort to find the right people who want what you have and have what you want. Every trade is a negotiation, and every negotiation is a gamble. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and sometimes you just run out of time or patience. For communities that depended on bartering, daily life was a constant balancing act of supply and demand, wants and needs. This is where money comes in handy. The invention of money changed everything. Suddenly people had a universal tool for trade, something everyone agreed had value, no matter what they needed or what they had to offer. Money made it possible to buy and sell goods quickly, easily, and fairly. It allowed communities to grow, markets to flourish, and civilizations to thrive. But before money, every transaction was a journey, a story of people trying to connect their needs with the resources around them, one trade at a time. For thousands of years, people relied on a simple but challenging system to get what they needed: bartering. Imagine living in a world where, if you wanted a loaf of bread, you had to find someone who not only had bread but also wanted what you had to offer. Maybe a chicken, a basket of apples, or a handmade tool. This system worked, but it was far from perfect. People needed a better system, something more efficient and reliable, especially as communities grew and trade became more complex. Bartering meant constantly swapping goods like chickens for apples or wool for grain. But what if the apple seller didn't want chickens? Or what if you had eggs, but the person with the bread only wanted honey? The process could be awkward and time-consuming, and it often left people unable to get what they needed, simply because their goods didn't match up with someone else's desires. People began to realize they needed something easier than constantly swapping chickens and apples. That's how the idea of money was born. Instead of trading goods directly, people started looking for objects that everyone agreed had value. These objects could be exchanged for anything, making trade much smoother and more flexible. Money became a common language for trade, a tool that everyone could use, no matter what they were buying or selling. Early forms of money were often valuable objects like shells, beads, or even stones. In some cultures, rare shells were prized and used as currency, while in others, colorful beads or carved stones served the same purpose. These items were chosen because they were hard to find, easy to carry, and everyone agreed they were valuable. They made trading much simpler, but there was still room for improvement. Eventually, people discovered that certain metals, especially gold and silver, were even better for use as money. Why gold and silver? These metals are durable. They don't rust or decay over time. They're divisible, meaning you can break them into smaller pieces or melt them down and reshape them. And most importantly, they're relatively scarce, so they hold their value well. Gold and silver became the standard for money in many ancient civilizations, from Egypt to Rome to China. With gold and silver, people could melt the metals down, create coins of different sizes and values, and everyone agreed these coins were worth something. Governments and rulers began to stamp coins with official marks, guaranteeing their weight and purity. This made it even easier for people to trust and use them in trade. Coins could be carried in a pouch, counted quickly, and used anywhere, making them a revolutionary step forward in the history of money. Imagine trying to do all that with a chicken. Chickens can get sick, run away, or simply not be wanted by the person you're trading with. They're not exactly convenient to carry around, and you can't divide a chicken into smaller parts without ruining its value. Gold and silver, on the other hand, solved all these problems. With gold and silver coins, trading became much simpler and more efficient. You could walk into a market, buy what you needed, and pay with coins that everyone recognized and trusted. No more awkward negotiations or searching for someone who wanted exactly what you had to offer. Money made trade faster, easier, and more reliable for everyone involved. Now, if you had chickens to sell, you could exchange them for a certain weight of gold or silver coins. Then you could use those coins to buy apples, tools, cloth, or anything else you needed whenever you wanted. This new system allowed people to save wealth, plan for the future, and participate in a much larger world of trade. Markets grew, cities flourished, and economies became more complex, all thanks to the power of money. No more searching for someone who wanted your specific chickens or apples. With gold and silver coins, people could trade freely, save for the future, and build thriving communities. The age of gold and silver marked a turning point in human history, laying the foundation for the complex economies we have today. Carrying around heavy gold and silver got old after a while, so people started depositing their precious metals with goldsmiths for safekeeping. The goldsmiths would give them receipts, essentially promises to return their gold or silver on demand. These receipts started being used as a form of money themselves. People realized it was easier to trade these pieces of paper than to go through the hassle of withdrawing the actual gold each time. And that, my friends, is how paper money was born. It represented a certain amount of gold or silver held by someone trustworthy. Today, most money doesn't even exist as paper anymore. In fact, if you were to gather up all the coins and banknotes in circulation, you'd find it's just a small fraction of the total money in the economy. The vast majority of money is now digital, existing only as numbers on screens and in databases. When you check your bank balance on your phone or computer, you're looking at digital money, money that you can't physically touch, but that you use every day to pay for groceries, bills, or even a cup of coffee. It exists as numbers in computers. These numbers represent your money, but they're not backed by piles of cash sitting in a vault somewhere. Instead, they're simply entries in a bank's digital ledger. Every time you swipe your card, transfer money online, or tap your phone to pay, you're moving these digital numbers from one account to another. This digital money is the lifeblood of our modern economy, making transactions faster, easier, and more convenient than ever before. And get this, banks create most of this money, not governments, through a process called lending. While governments do print physical cash, it's actually commercial banks that are responsible for creating the majority of money in circulation. This happens every time a bank issues a loan. When you go to a bank to borrow money for a car, a house, or even a business, the bank doesn't hand you cash from a secret stash. Instead, it creates new money by simply crediting your account with the loan amount. Here's how it works. Let's say you borrow £10,000 from a bank. You might imagine that the bank takes this money from someone else's savings, but that's not what happens. The bank simply creates a new deposit in your account, increasing the total amount of money in the economy. This process is called money creation through lending, and it's at the heart of how modern banking works. The bank doesn't take that money from somewhere else. There's no pile of cash being moved from one vault to another. Instead, the bank just types the amount into your account and, just like that, new money is born. This might sound almost magical, but it's a fundamental part of our financial system. The money didn't exist before you took out the loan. It was created the moment the bank approved your application and credited your account. It simply adds £10,000 to your account and boom! New money is created. This new money can now be spent, transferred, or saved, just like any other money. You might use it to buy a car, pay for home improvements, or invest in your business. As you spend the money, it moves through the economy, becoming part of the digital flow that keeps everything running smoothly. Of course, you have to pay back the loan with interest. This means you'll end up returning more money to the bank than you originally borrowed. The interest is the bank's profit for taking the risk of lending you money. It's also a key part of why banks are so eager to lend. They make money by charging interest on the loans they create. This cycle of lending, spending, and repaying is what keeps the wheels of the economy turning. This system allows banks to create money while also making a profit. The more loans banks make, the more money they create, and the more interest they can earn. This is why banks are such powerful players in the economy. They have the unique ability to expand the money supply simply by approving loans. But this power also comes with responsibility, as too much lending can lead to problems like inflation or financial crises. It's a clever system, but it also means most money exists as debt. Every pound, dollar, or euro created through lending is matched by a corresponding debt that must be repaid. This means that in our modern economy, money and debt are two sides of the same coin. For every saver, there's a borrower. For every deposit, there's a loan. Understanding this relationship is key to understanding how our financial system really works, and why the actions of banks have such a huge impact on our daily lives. Remember those numbers in computers? That's how most money exists today. When you check your bank balance online, you're seeing how much debt the bank owes you. And when you use your debit card, you're transferring that debt to someone else. It's a bit mind-boggling, but it works because we all trust this system. We trust that the numbers in our accounts represent actual value, even though they don't represent physical cash anymore. This digital system makes transactions faster and more efficient. You can send money across the world with just a few clicks.